June 17th, 1944, 14:10 hours, south of Saint-Lô, Normandy. Rain spits sideways across a maze of hedgerows, turning the earth into a thick brown glue. The air tastes like smoke and cordite, and somewhere inside that chaos, Gefreiter Karl-Heinz Müller is lying on his back, staring up at a gray sky he can barely see through the pane. A mortar round has torn into the German defensive line. Splinters of iron, hot, invisible, ripped across the hedgerow, catching Müller in the abdomen and lower thigh. He tries to sit up, but the world tilts and narrows. His hands come away red. To his right, an MG-42 lies silent. Its crew is gone. To his left, the thud of American boots grows closer. He can smell them before he sees them. Wet canvas, gun oil, and crushed leaves under their soles. A squad of U.S. 29th Infantry Division fans out around him, rifles lowered but cautious. One of them, a medic with a red cross smeared in mud across his helmet, slides to his knees beside Müller. And in that moment, Müller braces himself. He expects kicks, shouts, maybe a rifle butt. He's heard the propaganda. Every German soldier has. Instead, the medic mutters, "Easy, buddy. You're going to be all right." The words are calm, almost gentle. Müller blinks, unsure if he understood correctly. The medic's hands move quickly, checking, pressing, stabilizing. He calls out to another soldier to bring the plasma kit. He hears the word again, plasma. He knows what it means, but not like this. Not a bag the size of a book, clear as water, held up by an improvised stick while a rubber tube snakes toward his arm. In the Wehrmacht, plasma is rare, almost mythical. Something saved for officers, or for propaganda reels, showing pristine field hospitals no one at the front ever actually sees. Here, on a muddy French farm lane, it's being used on him. He tries to speak, but the medic just places a hand on his chest. "Don't move." Another American kneels. He opens a canvas pouch filled with instruments wrapped in chemically sterilized gauze. A full surgical roll, right here in the field. In the German lines, even the most seasoned Sanitäter often worked with tools sharpened the night before over a campfire. Müller watches, half delirious, as the Americans work with a speed and coordination he has never seen. He feels the sting of morphine. Hears the medic call out his pulse rate. Sees a soldier scribbling notes on a tag tied to his uniform. He realizes, slowly, painfully, that they're trying to save him. A man who was shooting at them less than an hour ago. Rain patters against his face. Somewhere far away, artillery shakes the ground. But here, in this tiny patch of mud, the war feels strangely distant. When they lift him onto a stretcher, the medic leans close enough that Müller can see the tiny flecks of mud on his cheek. "You're going to a field hospital, German. They'll take care of you there." A field hospital. He imagines a tent, maybe a wooden cot. He has no idea what's waiting. As the Americans carry him away through the hedgerows, Müller realizes something unsettling. He has just seen more medical equipment in 5 minutes than his entire company saw in 3 months. And soon, he will see even more. Things that will shock him, confuse him, and force him to question everything he thought he knew about the enemy. Because the U.S. field hospitals in Normandy weren't primitive shelters. They were something else entirely. Something he didn't know was possible in a war like this. And he's about to find out what's inside them.
The rain has stopped by the time Müller reaches the outskirts of the American medical zone. The stretcher bearers move at a steady rhythm, boots thudding softly on packed earth. He hears the hum long before he understands it. An electrical generator, sputtering and growling, powering something large. Then he sees the tents. Not the ragged, mud-drenched canvas he expects, but vast olive-drab structures arranged in precise rows. Floodlights shine from their entrances. Trucks come and go, ambulances, supply jeeps, and something else he has never seen before. Long-bodied vehicles with giant red crosses painted across the sides. One of the stretcher-bearers taps the hood of a passing vehicle. "Plasma truck," he murmurs. Muller frowns. A truck just for blood plasma? The Wehrmacht barely has enough to treat their own officers. Here, it's being delivered in bulk. Inside the main surgical tent, the air hits him immediately. Warm, bright, metallic. The smell of antiseptic is so strong he almost chokes on it. Rows of cots line the interior, some holding American soldiers, some British, and some German. Wehrmacht uniforms, field gray, torn, burned, blood-soaked. But the men wearing them are alive, bandaged, hooked up to IV lines. Some are even sleeping peacefully. No gods, no shouting, just medics moving with purpose. A lieutenant with a stethoscope around his neck steps forward. "Put him in pre-op." Pre-op. The term means nothing to Muller, but the tone does. It's routine, practiced, not improvised. They carry him deeper, past a table where surgeons work under blinding white lamps. He watches, stunned, as an American doctor calmly removes shrapnel from a wounded GI's shoulder, while a nurse hands him sterilized instruments from a tray that looks like polished steel. Then he sees it. A refrigerator-sized cabinet filled with small vials. Penicillin. Dozens of them. He blinks hard, thinking he's hallucinating. Back in the Wehrmacht, penicillin is a rumor whispered among frontline troops. A miracle drug the Americans use like water, while the Germans, despite all the propaganda, never managed to mass-produce enough.
A nurse notices him staring. "Don't worry," she says. "You'll get your dose before surgery." Before surgery. Before. The thought almost makes him laugh. In German aid stations, you were lucky if you got a single iodine swab before they cut in. Another medic removes his field dressing. The American bandage is clean, neatly folded. Nothing like the coarse, improvised wrappings the German sanitator used after the mortar blast. A doctor approaches, hands tucked into sterile gloves. He speaks calmly, almost casually. "You're stable enough. We'll get you in for abdominal repair within the hour." Within the hour. The words strike him harder than the shrapnel ever did. In German lines, abdominal wounds are often a death sentence. Even if you reach a surgeon, the wait is long, the tools are old, and infection spreads fast. But here surgery is not a desperate gamble. It's a scheduled procedure. A nurse scribbles something on a clipboard, then attaches it to his stretcher. Vitals, blood type, injury notes, time of plasma drip. Each detail precise, clear, recorded. For the first time since the mortar hit him, Muller feels something unfamiliar. Not relief, not trust, confusion. Why are they doing this? Why save the enemy? Why invest so much into a man who hours earlier fired at them from a hedgerow? He tries to speak, but pain tightens around his ribs. A nurse places a cool hand on his shoulder. "Save your strength," she whispers. "You'll need it soon." As she walks away, he notices something else, almost by accident. The tent isn't full of wounded Americans. It's full of wounded soldiers, period. Nationality doesn't matter. Uniform doesn't matter. Whoever comes through the flap gets treated.
But Meller hasn't yet seen the most shocking part of the American medical system in Normandy, something far beyond plasma kits, surgical lights, or penicillin stores, something he never imagined an army could bring to the front lines.
They transfer him onto the operating table. Warm lights bloom overhead. A nurse places a gas mask gently over his face, explaining the anesthesia in simple English he barely understands. "This will help you sleep," she says. "Deep breaths." He flinches as the mask settles against his skin. In the Wehrmacht, anesthesia is often ether poured onto rags, or nothing at all if supplies run low. Men scream through operations, they bite bullets, they pass out from shock. Here, he's being put to sleep, peacefully. A surreal calm spreads through him, loosening his grip on the world. His eyes drift toward the trailer's corner. There, he sees another German soldier lying on a recovery cot, a bandage wrapped neatly around his shoulder. He is awake, sipping water from a tin cup. A nurse checks his pulse as casually as if she's tending to a friend. The soldier notices Mueller staring. He gives a faint nod. "They treat us better than our own doctors," he whispers in halting German. The words echo inside Mueller's fading consciousness. A hiss from the anesthesia tube. Lights blur. Voices soften into distant murmurs. As the world narrows to a pinpoint, the last thing he sees is Major Callahan adjusting a lamp, readying his tools, focused entirely on saving a life, not an American life, not a German life, just a human one. Then everything goes dark, and when he wakes, everything will feel different. The pain, the room, the people around him, but most of all, the belief that he understood his enemy. The first thing he hears is breathing, slow, steady, not his own. For a moment, Mueller isn't sure if he's alive or suspended somewhere between worlds. The air around him is unnaturally warm, humming softly with the vibration of a generator. Then a voice cuts through the haze, quiet, calm, unmistakably American. "You're coming out of it. Easy now." His eyes crack open. He's lying in a cot, covered by a clean white blanket. Not a stained field wrap, not a coarse wool army cover, a hospital blanket. Light fills the recovery ward, bright, even, electric. The entire tent is powered. He turns his head slightly. Every motion aches, but the pain is distant, controlled. A muted throb rather than the burning agony he expected. He glances at his abdomen. The bandages are fresh, layered carefully, the edges taped with surgical precision. A metal stand beside him holds an IV line dripping clear fluid into his arm. Not water, not saline from a bottle boiled over a stove. Real IV therapy. He tries to speak, but a hoarse rasp comes out. A nurse appears, adjusting the drip. Her movements are practiced, efficient. She checks his temperature with a clinical thermometer. Then, almost casually, she says, "Surgery went well. You lost blood, but you're stable. You'll get another dose of penicillin in an hour." Another. As if it's routine, as if giving rare antibiotics to the enemy is nothing unusual. He swallows hard. His throat burns. The nurse notices. "Want water?" she asks. He nods weakly. She helps him sit up, supporting his back with one hand. He sips from a metal canteen. The water is cool and clean. No taste of rust, no dirt. Not the grimy ration water frontline German soldiers know too well.
When he lowers the canteen, he sees the cot beside him. An American soldier lies there, face turned away, chest rising gently with sleep. On the other side, a British paratrooper is getting his bandages changed. And 2 cots away, a German sergeant, his field-grade tunic folded neatly beside him, reading a small paperback book an American medic must have given him. No tension, no shouting, no barbed wire. Just wounded men being treated.
A pale silver light filters through the canvas walls, turning the recovery tent into a soft, translucent glow. Outside, he hears the rumble of trucks and the clatter of metal trays, morning routines beginning in the American camp. He feels clearer today, stronger. The pain is still there, but distant, manageable. Penicillin works fast. He shifts slightly on the cot, taking in the room with new eyes. Rows of wounded, American, British, and German, rest side by side under hanging IV bags. Nurses move between them like ghosts in white aprons. A phonograph, someone's personal luxury, plays a scratchy Glenn Miller tune near the nurses' station. It feels surreal, almost peaceful. A German corporal in the cot beside him notices he's awake. "You're lucky," he whispers, voice still weak. "I got here 2 days before you. They pulled a piece of metal the size of my thumb out of my lung." Mueller stares. How are you alive?" The corporal chuckles softly. "These Americans, they have equipment I've never even seen before. Machines that pull blood from one soldier and give it to another. Sterile tents that are cleaner than any hospital back home. And refrigerators, actual refrigerators full of medicine." He pauses. "Do you know what they told me when I arrived? That they'd try to save everyone, even us." Mueller isn't sure which part of that sentence shocks him more. A nurse approaches, checking their vitals. When she sees Mueller awake, she smiles warmly. "You'll be up and walking soon." Walking. Soon. Another impossibility. After she leaves, the corporal leans closer. "And that's not all," he whispers. "There's something else. Have you seen the trains?" Mueller frowns. "Trains?" The corporal nods. "They've built entire hospital trains, long ones, cars packed with stretchers, surgeons, nurses. They move wounded men from here to Cherbourg or back to England, hundreds at a time. I heard one medic say the U.S. Army can evacuate more men in a single day than our entire division could in a week." Mueller lets the words settle. Hospital trains, mobile surgery trucks, plasma stations, penicillin by the crate. The scale is overwhelming. He remembers German medical trains, old coal-powered cars, overcrowded, sweltering, so scarce they were often reserved for officers. He thinks of field hospitals in barns with dirt floors, supplies dwindling with every week of the war. Then another voice interrupts his thoughts. Deep, gravelly, unmistakably familiar. "You're awake, Gefreiter." Mueller turns. An older German soldier sits propped against a pillow, his left arm bandaged from wrist to shoulder. Oberfeldwebel Dieter Henning, a veteran from the Eastern Front. He has the calm, resigned stare of a man who has seen too much war to be surprised by anything. But even he looks unsettled. Henning takes a slow breath. "I've fought since Poland. I've seen every kind of aid station our army uses. You know what the Russians did to us. You know what we sometimes had to do to survive." Mueller nods. Henning gestures around the tent. "But this is something else. I've never seen an army treat enemy wounded this well. Not even our own. His voice lowers. Last night, they brought in a Waffen SS man, an actual SS. I thought they'd leave him outside or post a guard. Instead, the American surgeon treated him first. First! Mueller's eyes widen. Henning nods grimly. And the medics? They barely looked at his uniform. They patched him up, gave him morphine, and then moved on as if he were just another wounded soldier. Another wounded soldier. Not an enemy. Not a threat. Just a person. Mueller feels something tighten in his chest, something he can't name. It isn't gratitude. It isn't guilt. It's something far quieter and far heavier. The realization that everything he was taught about the Americans, about their cruelty, their indifference, their supposed barbarity, was a lie. Henning leans back, staring at the ceiling. We were told they were savages, he murmurs. But look around. Ask yourself, which side acts like the civilized one? Mueller doesn't answer. He can't. Because the truth is everywhere, reflected in every lamp, every glass vial of penicillin, every calm voice that treats him like more than a number. Outside, Mueller hears the distant clang of metal doors. Another truck has arrived. More wounded, more lives being saved. And somewhere deep inside him, a new question starts to form. If this is how the Americans treat prisoners, what else about this war has he misunderstood? He is not ready for the answer. But the next morning, he will find it. Not from doctors, not from nurses, but from a captured Wehrmacht officer who has seen even more than he has, and who knows a secret none of them expected.
The next morning, sunlight pours into the American recovery tent like a quiet blessing. The air smells of boiled coffee and antiseptic. Cots rustle, nurses whisper, and somewhere outside, a jeep backfires sharply before fading down the road. Mueller feels strong enough now to sit upright on his own. The world is sharper, clearer, and the lingering fog of anesthesia has finally lifted. That's when he notices a new patient, a man sitting rigidly in the corner cot, posture immaculate despite the bandages across his chest, a lieutenant by the insignia on his folded tunic, sharp-featured, grim, the kind of officer who carries discipline like a second skin. He looks over at Mueller and speaks in a low voice. "You're from the 352nd Division, aren't you?" Mueller nods cautiously. The lieutenant stares at the ceiling for a long moment before continuing. "I was captured near Isigny. My men were cut down by artillery. Half of them bled out before a medic even reached us." He turns his head slowly toward the American ward around them. "And here, they stopped my bleeding in 5 minutes. 5. They gave me plasma, morphine, penicillin. They worked on me while their own soldiers waited." His jaw tightens. "And yesterday, I heard something that you should know." Mueller leans forward, pulse quickening. The lieutenant lowers his voice to a whisper. "One of the American surgeons told a nurse they've brought in over 3,000 German wounded since Normandy began. 3,000. And they've treated nearly all of them." 3,000. The number hits Mueller like a hammer. The lieutenant's eyes harden, not with anger, but with disillusionment. "All my life, I was told that strength is measured by firepower, discipline, and will. But now I see something else."
He gestures faintly toward the bustling American staff.
Strength is this, the ability to save even the man who tried to kill you. A long silence settles between them. For the first time, Moeller realizes the truth he had been resisting since the moment the Americans lifted him from the mud. The U.S. field hospitals were not just advanced, they were humane. Operated by men and women who believed that mercy was not weakness, but duty. Outside, truck engines roar to life. Wounded soldiers, American, British, and German, are prepared for evacuation to larger hospitals inland. A nurse approaches Moeller and places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You'll be moving soon," she says softly. "England, most likely. Better facilities, better rest." England. Recovery. Life. He never expected the road to survival to run through the enemy. As he's wheeled outside, the sunlight hits his face. Warm, brilliant, almost blinding. The medical compound stretches out in front of him like a small city. Surgery tents, plasma trucks, supply depots, rows of ambulances painted with bright red crosses. A machine built not for destruction, but for preserving life. And in that moment, as he's lifted into the back of an evacuation truck, Moeller realizes something he will carry for the rest of his days. War had shown him the worst of humanity. But here, in the hands of his enemy, he discovered the best. The truck engine revs. Canvas flaps close. And the field hospital fades behind him, a strange, unforgettable oasis in the middle of a world on fire. And so, in the chaos of Normandy, German soldiers learned a truth they never expected, that sometimes the greatest power on a battlefield is not a weapon, but compassion. If you found this story as gripping and eye-opening as we did, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. This is Lafori, bringing you the hidden human stories of history, one chapter at a time. Thank you for watching. And until the next story, stay curious.